Chapter 1. Under the Cold Rain. Rain poured heavily over London that night, like a silver curtain blurring the ancient streets and majestic towers. In Mayfair, where wealth draped itself in quiet elegance, the world seemed distant, muffled by the steady tapping of rain on cobblestones and the thin mist swirling through the air. But for Charlotte Hargreaves, Lottie as her mother once called her, there was no elegance or romance in this rain, only coldness, only emptiness. She stood in the dim light of a small suburban apartment, a few miles from the city center, her trembling fingers touching the cracked mirror on the wall. The reflection was a stranger, tangled blonde hair damp from the humidity, pale green eyes dulled by exhaustion, and a faint streak of blood clinging to her lower lip. She wiped it with a tissue, wincing as the sting reminded her of James's latest outburst. It had started with a question, naive, foolish, desperate. "Whose perfume is that on your shirt?" she had asked, her voice barely above a whisper. His answer was a punch, a curse, and the bitter taste of blood in her mouth. Now the apartment was silent, save for the rain tapping at the window pane like a restless ghost. James stood by the door, his large frame blocking the exit, his heavy breath reeking of cheap beer. His brown hair was a mess, his polo shirt wrinkled and stained, far from the polished son his mother had once bragged about. "I'm sick of this," he growled, his words slicing through the stillness like a sharp blade. "My mother was wrong to choose you. You're nothing, nothing!" He hurled the words at her, each one hitting harder than his blows. "I want a divorce." Lottie froze, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. Divorce. The word hung in the air, heavy and final, like a guillotine poised to sever the fragile thread of her life. She should have felt relief. 3 years of bruises, whispered apologies, and nights listening to him stumble home with another woman's scent should have made her leap at the chance to be free. But instead, fear coiled around her like a snake. Where would she go? What would people say? The neighbors, the few friends she had left, the shadow of her pride, all would whisper behind her back. Poor Lottie couldn't keep her man, and this apartment, this cold, wretched cage, was the only home she knew. Without it, without him, she'd be adrift. I don't know," she whispered, her voice trembling as she gripped the edge of the kitchen counter. "We could try again, James. I could..." "Try?" He burst into laughter, a harsh, rasping sound that made her flinch. "You're pathetic. I've got someone else now, someone who doesn't nag me to death. Stay if you want, but I'm done pretending." He grabbed a chipped mug from the table and flung it hard against the wall. It shattered with a sharp crack, porcelain shards scattering across the floor like the fragments of her resolve. Then he left, the door slamming shut behind him, leaving her with the echo of his contempt. Lottie sank to the floor, her knees pressing into the cold tiles. The rain outside grew louder, its steady rhythm matching the throbbing in her head. She reached for the mirror again, her fingers tracing the faint purple mark blooming on her cheek. A gift from last week, when she forgot to iron his shirt. How had it come to this? 3 years ago, she was a shop girl in Yorkshire, dreaming of a peaceful life with a man who promised to cherish her. James Carter had seemed steady back then, a mechanic's son with a crooked smile and a mother who insisted Lottie was perfect for him. She had worn a simple white dress at their wedding, her heart fluttering with naive hope. But that hope had withered under his fists, his affairs, his relentless cruelty. She stood up slowly, her legs unsteady, and looked at herself in the mirror once more. The woman in the glass was a hollow shell, carved out by fear, shame, and the weight of a marriage she hadn't chosen. "Is this it?" she whispered to herself, her breath fogging the mirror. "Is this all I'll ever have?" The question lingered, unanswered, gnawing at her until she could no longer bear the silence. She needed to escape, if only for a night. Her hands moved on instinct, pulling an old woolen coat from the rack, its gray fabric frayed at the cuffs. She grabbed an umbrella, its handle bent from one of James's rages, and stepped out into the storm. The rain hit her like a slap, soaking through her shoes as she walked, aimless at first. The lights of central London glimmered in the distance, beckoning her towards something, anything, that wasn't this stifling void. She wandered into Soho, where the narrow streets buzzed with life despite the weather. Neon signs glowed through the mist, casting pools of color onto the wet pavement. Her umbrella tilted in the wind as she turned into a small bar, nestled between a bookshop and a shuttered bakery. "The Fox and Hound," the sign read, its letters peeling but warm with promise. Inside, the air smelled of oak and whiskey, the low hum of jazz weaving through the chatter of strangers. Lottie shook the rain from her coat, her hair sticking to her face, and sat down on a stool at the counter. The bartender, a wiry man with a graying beard, glanced at her with mild curiosity. "Gin and tonic," she said, her voice hoarse. He nodded, sliding the glass across the counter without a word. She took a sip, the sharp bite burning her throat, then another. Warmth spread through her chest, easing the ache that had taken root. For the first time in hours, she could breathe. She didn't know how long she sat there sipping her drink, watching the rain streak the windows like tears. The bar was a jumble of faces, laughing couples, lone drinkers, a group of men in suits arguing about football. She felt invisible, a ghost among the living, and maybe that was why she ordered a second glass. Then a third. The world softened at its edges, the pain blurring into something she could almost ignore. Chapter 2. A drunken night at the bar. The bar. The Fox and Hound was bathed in dim golden light, with shadows dancing on the worn wooden floor, reflected through the gleaming glasses on the counter. The scent of whiskey lingered in the air, mingling with the aroma of oak and a faint trace of cigarette smoke drifting from the far corner, where a few older men were swapping stories. Soft jazz melodies rose from an old speaker mounted on the wall, their smooth notes weaving through the lively chatter of the crowd. The rainy night outside seemed unable to touch this place. It was a world apart, warm and vibrant, in stark contrast to the icy storm raging in Charlotte Hargreaves' heart. Lottie sat alone at the corner of the counter, her small hands clutching her third gin tightly. Her blonde hair hung down, a few strands matted from the rain, sticking to her pale cheeks. Her pale green eyes were now red-rimmed, glistening as if on the verge of tears, but she bit her lip, trying to hold them back. The glass in front of her was half empty, the clear liquid sloshing each time she raised it to her lips. She wasn't used to drinking much. Before, she'd only dared to sip a little wine during the rare dinners James deigned to share with her. But tonight, she didn't want to stay sober. She wanted to forget James's shouts, the stinging slap across her face, and the cold declaration that he wanted a divorce. "You're nothing," he had said, and those words echoed in her mind like a discordant tune. She took another sip of gin, the sharp taste hitting her nose, making her eyes sting. The bar grew busier, the laughter of young couples mixing with the clinking of glasses. A group of men in suits sat near the door, arguing animatedly about last night's football match. A red-haired girl in a sparkly dress giggled beside her lover, their hands tightly clasped. Lottie watched them, a pang piercing her heart. She had once dreamed of moments like these, warm evenings with a man who loved her. But with James, all she got was silence, blows, and the strange scent of perfume on his clothes. 3 years of marriage, and she was still as lonely as the first day. "Another one," she said to the bartender, her voice hoarse, almost drowned out by the music. The gray-bearded old man glanced at her, a flicker of concern in his eyes, but he nodded, pouring a fresh gin and placing it in front of her. She didn't thank him. She no longer had the energy for politeness. She just wanted to sink into the haze of alcohol, let it wash everything away. A few seats away from Lottie, the bar door swung open, bringing in a gust of cold air and a few raindrops. Edward Blackwell, Ned, stepped inside, his dark gray trench coat glistening with water, his dark brown hair tousled by the wind. He shook the rain from his sleeves, his gray eyes scanning the room with the calm of someone accustomed to being in control. He wasn't a regular here. In fact, he rarely visited bars. After a long day at the office on the 68th floor of Blackwell Investments, he usually went straight to his Mayfair apartment, sitting by the window with a whiskey, watching the rain fall. But tonight, he needed air, something to rouse him from the emptiness that had taken root since Emily's death. Ned chose a seat near the counter, a few steps from Lottie, and ordered a scotch. He sat down, his shoulders slightly slumped from fatigue, but his gaze remained sharp, taking in everything around him. He hadn't come to talk to anyone. He just wanted quiet, letting the music and the smell of liquor soothe his mind. But then he noticed her, the blonde woman sitting alone, her trembling hands clutching a glass, her eyes lost amid the noisy crowd. Something about her held his attention, the way she bowed her head as if trying to hide from the world, the way her shoulders shook with each sip, and the faint bruise peeking out from under her long-sleeved sweater. He didn't know who she was, but he recognized that pain. He had carried it himself, seen it in the mirror after that fateful night 4 years ago, when a call from the hospital told him Emily hadn't made it. Lottie didn't see him. She had drunk too much, her mind foggy, the world around her blurring like a painting smeared by rain. The fourth gin slid down her throat, and she started to mutter, disjointed words only she could hear, but loud enough for Ned, with his keen ears, to catch. 3 years, she whispered, her voice choked. 3 years of being hit, betrayed. He said I was nothing. She gave a bitter, feeble laugh. His mother picked me, said I was the perfect bride, but he only wanted someone else. Ned tilted his head, listening without moving. He hadn't planned to get involved. He wasn't the type to meddle in a stranger's affairs, but her voice, though faint, cut through the noise, striking him like a needle. She went on, her words spilling out with the alcohol. I tried, cooked the meals he liked, kept the house clean, but he came home with another woman's perfume, then hit me when I asked. She stopped, her hand gripping the glass so tightly her knuckles turned white. Now he wants a divorce, and I'm still scared. I'm so stupid. A tear rolled down her cheek, falling onto the wooden counter, glinting under the light. She didn't wipe it away. She had no strength left. She just bowed her head, her hair hiding her face, and cried silently. Her small sobs were drowned out by the music, but Ned heard them. He felt them. That pain, that despair. He had stood where she stood, questioning if he was worth anything after losing Emily. But he had pulled himself up, and her, he thought, she needed someone to lift her. He stood walking closer, his leather shoes tapping lightly on the floor. Lottie didn't notice until his hand gently rested on her shoulder. She flinched, looking up, her red eyes meeting his in panic. He was tall, his angular face framed by deep gray eyes, but there was no threat in his gaze, only an unexpected gentleness. You don't have to live for someone who doesn't deserve you, he said, his voice low and steady, like an undeniable declaration. Let him go. You're worth more than this. Far more. His words pierced through the fog in Lottie's mind like a beam of light. She blinked, thinking she'd misheard, but his gaze didn't waver. It wasn't pity, it was understanding, a hand extended in the dark. For a moment, she felt as if she'd been jolted awake from a 3-year trance. She said nothing, just stared at him, tears falling again, but this time not from pain, because of a feeling she couldn't name. Ned pulled his hand back, signaling the bartender. Get her a glass of water, he said, then turned to her. I'll call you a taxi. You shouldn't be here alone like this. He took out his phone, arranged a cab in minutes, then tore a scrap of paper from a small notebook in his coat pocket. He wrote his number in firm, clear strokes and handed it to her. If you need someone, I'm here. Lottie took the paper, her hands trembling, her fingers clutching it as if afraid it would vanish. The taxi arrived and Ned helped her to the door, holding an umbrella over her in the unrelenting rain. She stepped into the car, looking back at him through the misty window, a stranger with gray eyes, the first person to give her a spark of hope in 3 dark years. As the cab pulled away, she held the note close, her heart racing, not from fear, but from something new, something alive stirring within her. Tonight she didn't know it yet, but her fate had begun to be rewritten. Welcome to Soul Stories. Life can feel overwhelming, but here we share heartfelt stories to bring you peace, joy, and inspiration. Your support, every comment, like, and follow means the world to us. It fuels our passion to create more meaningful and uplifting stories just for you. Did our latest story touch your heart? Drop an I am happy in the comments if it resonated with you. Join our community of kindness, love, and positivity by subscribing today. Let's make every day a little brighter, together. Chapter 3. Courage in the Rain. The rain still hadn't stopped when Lottie stepped out of the taxi, her soaked shoes squelching on the sidewalk, leading to the small suburban apartment in London. It was late at night, the streets quiet under the dim orange glow of streetlights, with only the trickling sound of water running through roadside drains. She shivered, not entirely from the cold, but because the words of the stranger from the bar, Ned, kept echoing in her mind like an endless refrain. You don't have to live for someone who doesn't deserve you. You're worth more than this, far more. Those words were like a breeze blowing through the fog in her mind, leaving her both confused and yearning to believe they could be true. She opened the door, the faint light from the ceiling bulb illuminating the cold room. Shards of the mug James had thrown still lay scattered on the floor, a reminder of his rage before he stormed out. Lottie took off her coat, hung it on the rack, and sat down on the worn armchair by the kitchen table. In her hand was the small piece of paper Ned had given her, his phone number written in bold, clear strokes, like a silent promise. She caressed it, her fingers gliding over each digit, her heart warming in a strange way. But then her gaze fell to the drawer beside her, where she knew James had left the divorce papers. She stood up, slowly pulling the drawer open. A stack of white papers lay neatly inside, the words divorce petition printed boldly at the top, tightening her chest. James had signed his name at the bottom, his scrawl sloppy but decisive, as if he hadn't hesitated to discard her. She picked up the papers, her hands trembling so much that they rustled. She wanted to sign, wanted to end it all. But each time the pen touched the page, she stopped. Images of James hitting her flashed vividly. The slap when she spilled coffee, the punch when she dared to ask about strange messages on his phone, and the nights he came home late, his shirt reeking of lipstick and alcohol, looking at her as if she were a useless object. Yet she had stayed. Why? Because of fear. Fear of losing what she called a family. Fear of the neighbors' prying eyes. Fear of admitting that for 3 years she had lived a life not worth living. She slumped back into the chair, the papers dropping onto the table, tears silently streaming down her cheeks. What else can I do? She whispered to herself. Without him, who am I? The thought choked her. She recalled Ned's words, simple yet powerful, like a small flame flaring in the darkness. But did she have the courage to believe them? She closed her eyes, trying to push away memories of James, but they flooded back. His indifference when she cooked dinners with care, the way he mocked her when she wore the dress he'd once complimented, and how he called her useless whenever his anger flared. The sudden clatter of the door lock interrupted her thoughts. Lottie flinched, quickly wiping her tears, her heart pounding. The door swung open, and James staggered in, his movements unsteady, his breath thick with the stench of alcohol. His shirt was drenched, his hair matted, his small, squinting eyes red and glaring at her with fury. "Where'd you go tonight?" he snarled, his voice raspy from drink. "Tom said he saw you at a bar. You dared to go to a bar without my permission?" Lottie stood, stepping back, her hands gripping the table's edge for support. I just needed some air," she mumbled, her voice trembling. "You said you wanted a divorce, I thought." "Thought what?" James cut her off, stepping closer, the smell of liquor hitting her nose. "You think you can just wander off? You're my wife. You need to apologize for stepping out like that." He raised his hand, and before Lottie could react, a slap landed on her cheek. The burning pain spread, making her stumble, tears welling up again. She clutched her face, bowing her head as she had so many times before, bracing for another beating. But then, something inside her broke open. Maybe it was Ned's words. Maybe it was the final drop that overflowed the cup. She looked up, staring straight at James, and shouted, "Enough!" Her voice rang out, sharp and stronger than she'd ever thought possible. James froze, his hand midair, his eyes widening in disbelief. Lottie didn't wait for him to respond. She turned, bolted for the door, and left him behind in the cold apartment. Rain lashed her face as she ran outside, soaking through her sweater, chilling her to the bone. She didn't bring an umbrella, nothing but the phone in her pocket. Her legs shook, but she didn't stop. She needed to escape this place, away from James, away from the cage she'd locked herself in for 3 years. In the pouring rain, she pulled out her phone, her wet, trembling hands fumbling to dial Ned's number, the only person she could think of now. The phone rang twice before he answered, his deep voice coming through the speaker. "Hello? Ned," she choked out, rain mixing with her tears. "I need you. I don't know what to do." "Where are you?" he asked immediately, his tone unwavering. She gave her address, her voice breaking with sobs. "Don't move. I'm coming right now." 15 minutes later, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb, its headlights cutting through the rain. Ned stepped out, his trench coat flapping in the wind, his gray eyes flashing with worry as he saw her huddled under a tree, drenched and shivering. He said nothing, just opened the car door and helped her inside. The warmth of the car enveloped her, but she still trembled, not from the cold, but from what had just happened. Ned drove away from the suburb, asking no questions, silently taking her to his apartment in Mayfair. Ned's apartment was a world apart from Lottie's, spacious and warm, with pristine white walls and large windows overlooking streets aglow with lights. He led her inside, handing her a thick towel and a set of dry clothes, a white shirt of his and soft pants. "Change into these, don't catch a cold," he said, his voice gentle but firm. Lottie nodded, stepping into the bathroom to change in silence, feeling like a lost soul who'd just found a harbor. When she returned, Ned had prepared a hot cup of tea, the scent of licorice wafting from a white porcelain mug. He set it on the wooden table by the sofa, motioning for her to sit. Lottie cradled the tea, its warmth spreading through her hands, easing some of her shaking. "Thank you," she whispered, not daring to meet his eyes. Ned sat across from her on a leather armchair, his gray eyes watching her with genuine concern. "What happened?" he asked, his voice soft but enough to let her know he truly wanted to hear. She took a deep breath and told him about James's slap, his demand for a divorce, how she'd finally run away. Tears fell again, but she didn't wipe them away. Ned listened without interrupting, nodding slightly when she paused to breathe. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment, then said, "I lost my wife, Emily, in a car accident 4 years ago. I thought my life ended with her. But I learned one thing. Life's too short to live in misery. You don't have to endure it anymore, Lottie." His words cut through the invisible ropes binding her like a knife. She cried harder, but this time not from pain, because of relief, because of being understood. Ned stood, retrieving the divorce papers from her coat pocket, still there, though damp, and placed them on the table. "Sign it," he said. "Not for me, but for yourself." Lottie looked at the papers, then at him. His gray eyes didn't pressure her, only encouraged. She picked up the pen, her hand still shaking, but this time she didn't stop. She signed her name, Charlotte Hargreaves, below James's, each stroke like a cut freeing her from the past. When she set the pen down, she exhaled, a long breath as if shedding an entire world. Ned gave a faint smile, standing to fetch a thin blanket to drape over her. "Sleep here tonight," he said, pointing to the wide sofa. "I'll be in the next room. If you need anything, just call." He turned, walking to the large window, standing there watching the rain fall, his heart stirring, for the first time in 4 years, for a woman he'd just met, but already wanted to protect. Lottie lay on the sofa, pulling the blanket up, her eyes blurred from exhaustion and emotion. The rain outside no longer felt frightening. It was a lullaby, guiding her into the first sleep free of James's shadow. She had found courage, and she knew from this night on, everything would be different. Chapter 4. A new job, a new life. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight pierced through London's gray clouds, Lottie woke up on the warm sofa in Ned's apartment. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a quiet city that sparkled after the storm. She sat up, the thin blanket slipping off her shoulders, and looked around the spacious room with its pristine white walls and minimalist, yet luxurious furniture. The teacup from last night still sat on the table, cold now, but its warmth lingered in her heart. The divorce papers, now bearing her signature, lay neatly beside it, like a declaration that she had truly stepped through the door to freedom. Ned emerged from the kitchen carrying a small tray with 2 cups of coffee and a few slices of toast. He wore a simple white shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, his dark brown hair slightly tousled from not being combed. "Good morning," he said, his deep voice resonating softly as he set the tray on the table. "How do you feel?" Lottie gave a weak smile, wrapping her hands around the hot coffee he handed her. "Better. Thanks to you. I don't know how to thank you." She took a sip, the faint bitterness of the coffee sharpening her senses. "No need to thank me," Ned replied, sitting down in the chair across from her. "I just did what I thought was right." His gray eyes looked at her, not imposing, but enough for her to feel his sincerity. They ate breakfast in silence, with only the faint crackling of the small fireplace in the corner breaking the quiet. But that silence wasn't oppressive. It was gentle, like a promise that she didn't need to rush. After breakfast, Lottie decided to leave. She couldn't stay forever in a stranger's apartment, even one who had saved her from the darkness. Ned offered to drive her home, but she declined, saying she needed time to think. He nodded, giving her a small amount of money for a taxi and saying, "Call if you need anything. I mean it." She nodded, clutching the piece of paper with his phone number tightly, then stepped out of the apartment, carrying a new feeling, relief, but also uncertainty. 3 days later, Lottie officially left the old apartment. She packed her belongings, just a few clothes, a wooden box holding mementos from her mother, and some personal items, into 2 small suitcases. James wasn't there when she left, probably with his new lover. She left the keys on the table, along with the signed divorce papers, and walked out the door without looking back. With the meager savings from her previous job as a shop assistant, she rented a small apartment in Camden, a simple room with a window overlooking a bustling street, but it was hers alone. For the first time in 3 years, she had a place to call home. But she needed a job. Her savings wouldn't last long, and she didn't want to depend on anyone, not even Ned. She opened her laptop, browsing job listings, and stumbled upon an administrative assistant position at Blackwell Investments, a major financial company in London's City District. The requirements weren't too demanding: organizational skills, good communication, and basic office experience. Things she'd done while working retail. She applied without much thought, unaware that it was the company of the man who had changed her life in one rainy night. 2 days later, she received an email inviting her for an interview. That morning, Lottie stood in front of the mirror in her new apartment, wearing a simple navy office dress and a thin coat. She tied her hair into a low bun, applied light makeup to cover the fading bruise on her cheek, and took a deep breath. "I can do this," she told herself, then stepped out, carrying a mix of nerves and determination. The Blackwell Investments building towered over the city, its glass and steel gleaming under London's rare sunlight. Lottie entered the lobby, her low heels clicking softly on the marble floor, and checked in at the reception desk. She was led to the 15th floor, where a stern, middle-aged woman interviewed her. The interview went smoothly. She answered fluently, though her heart pounded. At the end, the woman gave a rare smile. "You start next Monday. Welcome to Blackwell Investments." On her first day, Lottie wore a white blouse and pencil skirt, stepping into the office with a touch of anxiety. She was shown to a small corner with a neat desk, where she'd manage schedules, organize documents, and assist the administrative team. She started work, focusing on simple tasks, feeling relieved to be doing something for herself. But then at midday, the large meeting room door swung open, and Edward Blackwell stepped out, his black suit hugging his tall frame, his gray eyes scanning the room. He paused when he saw her, a flicker of surprise crossing his usually calm face. "Lottie?" he called, his deep voice ringing through the quiet space. She looked up, stunned, her hand holding a stack of files freezing midair. You work here?" "I'm the CEO," he replied, the corner of his mouth lifting into a slight smile. "I didn't expect to see you here." She blushed, flustered. "I didn't know. I just saw the job listing and—" She trailed off, unsure how to explain. Ned walked over, resting a hand on her desk, his gaze gentle. "I'm really glad you're here. If you need anything, just tell me." From then on, Ned began paying more attention to her. He gave her small tasks, scheduling meetings, preparing reports, but always paired them with a few minutes of conversation. They talked about London, rainy days, and the hidden cafes and narrow alleys he liked. Gradually, he drew her into late work sessions when the office emptied out. They sat across from each other at the meeting table, white light illuminating his face, and he spoke of his emotional scars, about Emily, about the loneliness after she was gone. Lottie opened up too, sharing her 3 years of fear with James, how she'd once thought she didn't deserve love. One evening after finishing a lengthy report, Ned looked at her, his eyes softer than usual. "Would you like to have dinner? Just a simple meal. I know a place in Covent Garden." Lottie hesitated, then nodded, her heart racing at his subtle invitation. They went to a small restaurant, candlelight flickering on the table, and for the first time, she felt the warmth of a man who asked nothing of her, just wanted to be with her. But that peace didn't last. One afternoon a few weeks later, while Lottie was sorting files in the lobby, James suddenly appeared. He wore an old polo shirt, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot from alcohol. "Who do you think you are working here?" he yelled, his voice echoing through the lobby, drawing stares from a few employees. "Working for that rich guy to scam money, huh? You cheap thing." Lottie trembled, clutching the files tightly, her face paling from shame and fear. "James, go away," she said, her voice faint. But he stepped closer, raising his hand as if to slap her. Before he could, a cold voice cut through. "That's enough." Ned emerged from the elevator, his tall figure imposing in a black suit, his gray eyes sharp as a blade. He stepped in front of Lottie, his voice low but commanding. "Get out now, or I'll call security." James sneered, opening his mouth to retort, but Ned's gaze, a silent threat, made him falter. He muttered something, then turned, staggering out of the building. Lottie shook, tears spilling as James disappeared. Ned turned back, pulling her into his arms, holding her tightly in the empty lobby. "I won't let anyone hurt you again," he whispered, his voice firm like a vow. She leaned into his chest, feeling his warmth and steady heartbeat, her heart suddenly calm in an unfamiliar way. When they stepped outside, it was raining again, small droplets falling onto her hair. Ned took her hand, pulling her under an awning, his eyes full of determination and something deeper, affection he no longer hid. "You don't need to be afraid anymore, Lottie," he said, his hand tightening around hers. She looked at him, her heart racing, and for the first time, she felt a reciprocated emotion, something she'd never had with James. Under London's rain, she knew she was starting to fall in love. Chapter 5. Love Under the Lights. London gradually became a different place in Lottie's eyes. No longer a city of cold rain and loneliness, but a place where she found light in the darkness. After the incident with James at Blackwell Investments, Ned became her steadfast anchor. He wasn't just the polished boss in a black suit, but a gentle, patient man who always appeared at the right moment to pull her from gloomy days. One Friday afternoon, as the office emptied out, Ned walked to her desk, a hint of mischief glinting in his gray eyes. "Do you have any plans for the weekend?" he asked, his deep voice resonating softly. Lottie looked up from her stack of documents, shaking her head. "No, I was just going to stay home. Read a book, maybe." She smiled, still a bit shy when talking to him outside of work. "Then come with me," he said, as naturally as if it were obvious. "I have a little house in the Cotswolds. Fresh air, no rain, just 2 days. You need a break." Lottie hesitated, but his earnest gaze made it impossible to refuse. She nodded, her heart racing at the thought of being with him beyond the office walls. The next morning, they left London in Ned's sleek black car. The highway took them past lush green fields and small villages with thatched cottages nestled under the early autumn sun. Lottie sat in the passenger seat, watching the scenery glide by the window, her heart lighter than ever. Ned turned on the radio, a classical piece playing, and they talked about country roads he'd driven, books she loved, and little things that made them laugh. When they reached the Cotswolds, Ned's small house came into view. A gray stone cottage with a red-tiled roof, set amid a field of wildflowers and a babbling brook. Inside, the space was cozy, with polished wooden floors, a stone fireplace already lit, and linen curtains swaying gently in the breeze from an open window. Ned led her in, setting her bag on a fabric-covered armchair. "Make yourself at home," he said, then went to the kitchen to prepare lunch. Lottie sat by the fireplace, the crackling flames warming her hands, and she suddenly realized she hadn't felt this peaceful in the past 3 years. They ate lunch, a simple meal of bread, cheese, and red wine, at a small wooden table by a window overlooking the field. Afterward, Ned took her for a walk around the garden, showing her the flower beds he'd planted the previous spring. They sat on a wooden bench by the stream, sunlight filtering through the leaves, casting specks of light on her blonde hair. Ned looked at her, silent for a moment, then said, "I like seeing you like this. Relaxed, not worried." Lottie blushed, lowering her head. "I never thought I could be like this. Not after everything. You've changed it all, Ned." She looked up, her pale green eyes meeting his gray ones, and for the first time, she didn't look away. That night, after a dinner of grilled meat and mashed potatoes, they sat by the fireplace, each holding a glass of wine. The firelight played across Ned's face, highlighting his angular yet gentle features. He set his glass down, looking at her, his voice lower than usual. "I've never told you everything about Emily," he began, his eyes flickering with old pain. "She was everything to me, cheerful, smart, always making me laugh. But 4 years ago, she died in a car accident. I thought I could never love again, until I met you, Lottie." His words struck her heart like an arrow. She set her wine glass down, her hands trembling. "Ned," she whispered, unsure what to say. He moved closer, sitting beside her on the rug in front of the fireplace. "I like you," he said, his voice firm. "Not because I'm lonely, but because you're the one I want to be with, the one who makes me feel alive again." Lottie looked at him, tears shimmering in her eyes. She said nothing, just leaned toward him, and he understood. He brushed her cheek with his hand, his thumb grazing her soft skin, then leaned down. Their first kiss was as gentle as an autumn breeze, but it quickly deepened as she responded, her arms wrapping around his neck. The firelight bathed them, the warmth of the hearth blending with his warmth, and Lottie felt her heart open. For the first time in years, it was no longer frozen. That night, they grew close on the wooden bed in the small room, the curtains drawn, leaving only the faint glow of the fireplace outside. For Lottie, it wasn't just physical. It was the first time she felt truly loved. Ned's tenderness as he whispered her name between caresses, the reverence in his every move. 3 years with James, she'd never known this, only fear and coldness. But with Ned, she felt loved, wanted, cherished. When it was over, she lay in his arms, her head resting on his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat mingle with the crackling fire. She drifted off. No nightmares, no worries, just peace. The next morning, they returned to London, hand in hand on the highway. Lottie felt different, stronger, more confident, as if she'd rediscovered herself in those brief 2 days. But as they pulled up to her Camden apartment, her phone buzzed. A text from James appeared on the screen. "You think you can escape me? I'll make you regret it." Her heart chilled, but then she looked at Ned, standing beside her, his eyes worried as he saw her pale. "It's him," she said, showing him the phone. Ned gripped her hand tightly, his voice stern. "Block his number. He has no hold over you anymore." Lottie took a deep breath, her trembling finger pressing the block button. When the screen confirmed blocked, she exhaled, feeling as if she'd just severed the last tie binding her to the past. "I'm free," she whispered, looking up at Ned. He smiled, pulling her into his arms. "You've always been free since the night I met you." 2 weeks later, Ned took Lottie to Tower Bridge on a drizzly evening. London glowed under the lights, the Thames sparkling with reflections of towering buildings. They stood in the middle of the bridge, rain lightly falling on their coats, but neither cared. Ned held her hand, his gray eyes deeper than ever. "I've thought about this a lot," he said, his voice low but trembling with emotion. "I don't want to lose you, Lottie. I want you by my side, not just today, but forever." He knelt down, pulling a small box from his coat pocket. Inside was a simple silver ring, unadorned but shining like the city lights. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his voice steady yet full of hope. Lottie froze, tears spilling out, mingling with the rain on her cheeks. She looked at him, the man who'd pulled her from darkness, given her love and strength to live again. "Yes," she whispered, her voice choked. "I will, Ned." He stood, slipping the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a long kiss under the rain. A fierce kiss, brimming with love and promise. As they left the bridge, hand in hand, Lottie looked at the ring on her finger, raindrops glinting on the silver. She was no longer the frightened woman of 3 years ago. She was Lottie, free, loved, and ready for a new life with the man who had rewritten her destiny. Chapter 6. Peace After the Rain. A year had passed since that rainy night on Tower Bridge, when Ned knelt down to propose to Lottie under the shimmering lights of London. Now they lived together in a spacious apartment in Mayfair, a place that had once been her temporary refuge during dark days, now transformed into a loving home for the two of them. The apartment still retained its minimalist elegance with white walls and large windows overlooking the bustling streets, but it now bore the marks of both their lives. One corner of the room had been turned into Lottie's little studio, with a drafting table covered in sketches, pencils, and tiny interior design models. Beside it stood a bookshelf filled with novels she loved, interspersed with a few of Ned's finance books. Green potted plants she'd nurtured were scattered around the house, and on the wall hung a painting of the Cotswolds landscape, a memento of the trip that had bound them forever. Lottie was no longer the trembling, fearful woman of a year ago. She was now Charlotte Blackwell, Ned's wife, once his personal assistant at Blackwell Investments, but now a renowned interior designer in London. After their marriage, she embarked on a journey to pursue the dream James had crushed during their 3-year marriage: interior design. She enrolled in a part-time course at Central St. Martin's, one of England's most prestigious art schools, and spent hours each evening sketching, researching materials, and learning how to turn empty spaces into living stories. Ned was always by her side, sitting nearby with a glass of whiskey, his gray eyes gleaming with pride as he watched her work. "You'll do great things, Lottie," he said one evening, as she finished a sketch for her final course assignment. She looked up, smiling at his praise. "Thank you, Ned. I wouldn't have come this far without you." Ned shook his head, setting his whiskey glass on the table. "No, you made it because of you. I'm just the one standing beside you." His words made her feel the unwavering faith he had in her, a faith that lit the path ahead. Lottie's journey didn't end with completing the course. After graduating with an outstanding degree, she began freelancing, taking on small projects from friends and former colleagues at Blackwell Investments. Her first project was redesigning the company's main meeting room, a space once cold with glass walls and stiff wooden tables. She turned it into a warm haven, with pale blue walls, soft fabric chairs, and abstract paintings hung sporadically. Ned was the first to praise it, but it was the board's feedback. "Miss Blackwell has brought soul to this place," that made her realize she could go further. Word spread quickly, and soon Lottie was commissioned for bigger clients: a luxurious restaurant in Covent Garden, a boutique hotel in Notting Hill, then a Chelsea mansion for an aristocratic family. Her style, blending modern minimalism with the cozy charm of the English countryside, swiftly gained attention. Interior design magazines like Homes and Gardens and Elle Decoration started mentioning her name, calling her London's rising star of interior design. An interview in The Guardian captured her now famous quote, "I want every space I create to be a sanctuary, a place where someone can feel safe and loved, as I once longed for." That statement didn't just reflect her talent, it was a declaration of her journey overcoming her past. Ned was her biggest supporter. He wasn't just her husband, but her companion, listening whenever she struggled with a project and being the first to clap when she finished. Once, when she won the Emerging Interior Designer Award at a London event, he stood below the stage, eyes sparkling, and whispered as she stepped down, "I always knew you'd shine, Lottie." She hugged him, tears of joy streaming down her face, knowing that shine came not just from her talent, but from the love he'd given her. But for Lottie, success wasn't only about awards or fame. She wanted to do something greater, something deeply meaningful, like what Ned had done for her on that fateful rainy night. She never forgot the days James had trapped her in fear, the nights she huddled in a corner, crying into her hands after each beating. She knew she was lucky to have Ned, who planted hope, pulled her from the shadows, and gave her the love to stand again. But how many other women, how many children, had no one to reach out to them? That thought drove her to act. One evening, as they sat on the sofa in the apartment, Lottie turned to Ned, holding a sketch that wasn't of a house, but a plan. "Ned," she said, her voice trembling with emotion, "I want to start a foundation to support abused women and orphaned children. I don't want anyone to suffer like I did before. I want to be the next one to sow hope, to spread love, like you did for me." Ned looked at her, his gray eyes shining with surprise and pride. He took her hand, squeezing it tightly. "Lottie, that's a wonderful idea. I'll help you. Whatever you need, I'll do it." He didn't just say it. With his experience running Blackwell Investments, he helped her draft financial plans, connect with donors, and build a reliable team. The foundation was named Haven of Hope, a sanctuary of hope, a name reflecting Lottie's aspiration to provide a safe haven for those who'd been as desperate as she once was. Haven of Hope officially launched on a lightly rainy day in London at an event held in a Shoreditch gallery. Lottie stood on stage wearing an elegant pale green dress, her blonde hair tied up high, her eyes sparkling as she spoke of the foundation's mission. "I was once a woman who saw no way out," she shared, her voice choked but strong. "I thought I didn't deserve love, that I wasn't strong enough to change. But someone gave me hope, and now I want to give that back to others, to women who've been abused, to children without a home. We can do it if we do it together." Below the stage, Ned clapped first and the whole room followed, the applause resounding like an affirmation. The foundation quickly gained community support, from major donors like Blackwell Investments to ordinary people sending small contributions. Haven of Hope opened shelters in London and nearby cities, offering housing, counseling, and vocational training for abused women. For orphaned children, it built free classrooms, provided books, and created opportunities for them to find a future. Each time Lottie visited a center, seeing a woman smile or a child's brightening eyes, she knew she was doing the right thing. Their lives weren't just about work and big projects. They still made time for each other, exploring England like they did in the early days of their love. They went to Cornwall in winter, watching waves crash against cliffs at Land's End, hand in hand under a gray sky. They visited Scotland in spring, walking through heather fields in the Highlands, laughing as sudden rain soaked their clothes. Each trip was a memory, proof that their love wasn't just a fleeting flame from those early days, but a steady warmth enduring through time. James was now a distant memory. Lottie heard he was scraping by in Manchester, his relationship with his new lover fallen apart, sinking deeper into alcohol. Once she glimpsed him on Oxford Street while walking with Ned. He stood there, his old shirt tattered, his squinting eyes watching her with belated regret. But she didn't stop, didn't look back. She held Ned's hand tighter, walking on, leaving him behind with regrets that couldn't change anything. James no longer had power over her. She was free, and she had found true happiness. One autumn evening, as light rain fell outside the apartment windows, Lottie sat on the sofa, sketching a new design, a community center for Haven of Hope. Ned came in, shedding his wet trench coat, and sat beside her. He picked up the sketch, studying it. "Another sanctuary, huh, Lottie?" he asked, smiling. "Yeah, Ned," she replied, pointing at the lines. "I want it to be warm, like our Cotswolds house, a place where people feel safe." She looked up, catching his gaze, gentle, filled with love. "I want to build it with you," he said, pulling her close. "Not just this center, but our house in the Cotswolds too. You and me, forever." Lottie rested her head on his chest, hearing his steady heartbeat, and smiled. Happiness needed no words. It was there in every moment they shared. Looking back on her journey, Lottie realized how far she'd come. From a frightened, insecure woman living in James's shadow, she was now a celebrated designer, a founder of a charity, and above all, someone who knew how to love herself. Ned's love hadn't just healed her. It had helped her reclaim her inner strength, showing her she could rise from suffering and become a light for others. She'd turned her scars into inspiration, a drive to sow hope and spread love, just as Ned had done for her on that rainy night. One night, as they stood on the balcony watching rain fall over Mayfair, Lottie turned to Ned, their hands intertwined. "You know," she said softly, "I once thought I couldn't escape the darkness. But you gave me light, Ned, and now I want to bring that light to others." Ned leaned down, kissing her lips gently. "You're my light, Lottie," he whispered, "and I'm proud you're doing something greater than I ever did." He squeezed her hand, and they stood there, letting the rain tell their story, a tale of rebirth, love, and a mission to pass on hope. When the rain stopped, moonlight gleamed on the wet streets, Lottie leaning into Ned, the silver ring on her finger glinting. She smiled, knowing she hadn't just found peace after the rain. She'd become someone who brought peace to others, like an endless circle of love. Lottie learned she could rise from suffering, turn pain into strength, and use it to help others. Ned's love was the first spark, but she had turned that spark into a beacon, illuminating the way for women and children as desperate as she'd once been. Her journey was proof that anyone can find light, and anyone can become a giver of light. All it takes is daring to believe and daring to act. Thank you for following this heartfelt story of Soul Stories channel. Share your thoughts about the story in the comments below. If you believe that true love can withstand all trials and sometimes begins in the simplest of ways, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends. To never miss out on touching and meaningful stories, subscribe to our channel and help us spread messages of love and warmth to everyone. Let's cherish the beautiful moments of life and love together.